The biggest mystery of the new year is slowly being revealed. Today, we're learning new details on how Carlos Ghosn escaped from his supposedly ironclad detention in his Tokyo apartment to end up in his luxury home over in Beirut. Here to take us through what we think we know is Bloomberg Detroit Bureau Chief David Welch. So, David, I got to say, this is just one heck of a story, and it's in the car industry, so what more can you want?
It's an incredible story, David. Look, there's a great irony here, too, and that is when Carlos Ghosn saved Nissan years ago, he was depicted in Japanese comic books as this hero, and now maybe we'll see comic books where he's the villain with this daring escape out of Japan, smuggling out in a box, possibly, and then getting on a private jet to Turkey and then eventually to Lebanon. But it gets even better because you've got this former Green Beret with American International Securities is the name of his firm, who helped smuggle Ghosn out of the country past Japanese security. And ironclad, I'm not sure. He wasn't even wearing an ankle bracelet. He got on a bullet train for Osaka out in full view, wearing nothing but the kind of mask everyone wears in Japan to avoid getting a cold or catching the flu or something like that. And then he was eventually smuggled out of the country. But it really is an unbelievable story.
Well, apparently there was some hole in the security because they went to a small private airport outside of Osaka, and they basically didn't do x-rays on really big boxes, as I understand it.
Right. Yeah, that's the way it reads here, that he was in some large box, I think it was maybe for audio equipment or speakers or something like that, but it was too big for their scanners, and the security people, probably thinly staffed because it was around New Year's when things kind of shut down in Japan, didn't give it much of a look, and out he went.
So this is a pretty big embarrassment for the Japanese authorities, I think it's fair to say. But we don't want to forget, Carlos Ghosn is leaving somebody behind, his deputy, Mr. Kelly, who is also under detention. They're not going to let him go, it looks like.
He's the guy who's probably got the worst end of this from everybody involved, because he's stuck in Japan. He doesn't have the security firm to help him get out, and the Japanese will now be probably tripling security on him. He'll be under constant surveillance, I would assume, and he's going to have a really impossible time getting out.
And in the meantime, Wednesday, I guess Mr. Ghosn is going to hold some kind of a news conference over in Beirut and talk about all this. He's eager, it appears, to really lay out exactly why he thinks what was being done to him in Japan was so outrageous.
He is, and Ghosn has maintained all along that he's innocent of the charges, but also that this was a conspiracy cooked up by Japanese executives at Nissan who didn't want the full merger between Renault and Nissan that he was pushing for. That part, there's a lot of truth to, because Bloomberg had actually broken the story that Ghosn had really pushed to merge the two companies completely. And shortly after that, Saikawa, the past CEO, was publicly saying that it wasn't time for that. We know there was opposition to the merger, and that whole summer after all of this is when they started building the case, and eventually Ghosn was arrested. Now, he's going to have to prove he's innocent of these charges, and the Japanese have released quite a bit of evidence against him. But he hasn't had a chance to speak either, so we will get Carlos Ghosn's side of the story on what happened with underreporting his income and these other investment vehicles that they say were illegal.